All right, welcome everybody to Mental Junk Food, where we talk a little bit about everything from comic book news, pop culture news, sci-fi, horror, and just everything in between. Just anything, I guess, geekdom. Who knows? But with that out of the way, let's talk about the subject matter at hand, which is I don't know how to put it, the health of Stan Lee, the situation surrounding Stan Lee, just the Game of Thrones that's going on around poor Stan Lee. I've actually pulled up several articles because news just keeps pouring out from different sources from here and there and all this other stuff, and it's just all over the place. But it's pulling from comicbook.com, an article entitled Stan Lee Reportedly Victim of Elderly Abuse. Somewhere near the bottom of it, they summarize it very well. It's an ongoing saga of sad or worrisome situations Stan Lee has found himself in since the passing of his wife, Joan, as of last year. In that time, Lee has had his money, real estate, and even his own blood, which is weird. His own blood has been stolen from him, presumably from the same group of conspirators. In the fall, Stan Lee was accused of sexual misconduct by his live-in nurses, and he started out in 2018 battling serious illness like pneumonia. Fans and other celebrities have started to take notice of the toll being taken on the geek culture legend, especially during a recent convention appearance in which a sick and tired Lee is seen on video being put through a rigorous book signing session. Okay, so unquote. So I think that pretty much summarizes all the crap that's happened to this man in a span of a year, give or take. And things have really come to a head, recently at one of the last comic book convention appearances that he's made. Now, I know he has canceled a few of them, but at the last one, I believe that he was at, a lot of fans who were in attendance expressed their concern or dismay about a lot of things that apparently is happening to him. Stan Lee, if I remember correctly, is 95 years old, and it's starting to show a lot. He'll be signing autographs for about 1,000 or more people. I don't know, a lot of people. He draws a lot of attention, despite the prices that you have to pay to actually get an autograph from Stan Lee. A lot of people want that autograph. You know what I'm saying? So that said, you got this legend. He's up there. He's autographing things, and it doesn't take him long to get really, really fatigued. And that's one of the things a lot of people have expressed when they were getting autographs from him this year at the convention. There's a guy named Samuel Tong. There was an excerpt that came from either his Facebook page or I guess it was maybe Twitter, who knows. His Facebook page. And this comes from Bleeding Cool News, and I'll also have a link to this article in the description box. But Samuel Tong, who went to the convention and saw Stan Lee, he wrote, and I quote, "I admit I was excited at meeting the jolly Excelsior Stan Lee, but instead he was every bit the tired 95-year-old man he is and should be at this point with everything going on. We came for the 10 a.m. autograph signing for him to sign my favorite comic year 2000 or comic book year, whatever, 2000 Ultimate Spider-Man #1. He was late around 45 minutes, so we ended up staying in line for his 1 p.m. signing. This time the line was moving pretty fast, unusually fast. We were near the front when he took one of his naps, and the staff seemed annoyed. That sort of got my spider senses tingling. When he woke up, we went in and we got to the front table, and sure enough, I saw the 10 comic books, etc., and all being put out in a long, long assembly line for him to sign, and Stan did not talk at all, just looking very tired and frail. What was weird is that his handler kept telling him how to sign his name. Right, Stan Lee, Stanlee, like he's going senile or something, or is he? And they told us not to talk to him or say hi or anything. At the photo op, he was not too different, looked very tired. They rushed us along as expected and told us not to talk to him, but I sneaked in my quickest "Thank you for Spider-Man, Mr. Lee. He helped me get through a lot of bad times during high school. I love you, bye," before they kicked us out. Ha ha ha. Anyway, I hope Stan can get good rest after this. He deserves it after giving us a world of happiness." Unquote. So that was a quote from Samuel Tong, and a lot of people expressed that very same sentiment. There was fans that were super concerned about him, like feeling that he's being taken advantage of. He's having to do all these autographs, and it's clearly seems to be fatiguing the man. Maybe they could space out the time, of him doing the autographs, or maybe he shouldn't do them at all anymore. I think at this point in time, there's probably his autograph, and I don't mean to sound mean. I'm just being honest here. His autograph's probably worthless in the sense that the more autographs there are in the world of a person, the less value it has. And the less autographs there are of a celebrity, the more value it has because it's a rarity. A Stan Lee autograph is no longer a rarity. And I would think a lot of books that actually have his autograph, I mean, it does make the value of those books go up. But I would assume that the books that Stan Lee has autographed that are actually worth the most are the ones that he actually wrote. A lot of fans hand him anything that's Marvel and to autograph, and a lot of stuff that he autographs is stuff he never even wrote. I understand that he created or co-created with Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and a lot of others, a lot of the Marvel universe. So there's a little bit of a leeway there, but still, I would believe that the most valuable books that Stan Lee's autograph would be the ones that he actually wrote. And you know what I mean, like the first, I don't know, 1 through 60, 1 through 100 or something other, a Fantastic Four, the first, I don't know, 30 or 40 issues of Spider-Man. I don't know how long he stayed on Spider-Man before he let somebody else take it over, but you get the idea. So that out of the side, that out of the way, poor Stan, it apparently, like, they got an assembly line of comic books for him to sign, and they're telling his fans not to talk to him, not to speak to him, not to interact with him, and he's just like a machine having to autograph this stuff over and over, and that's just terrible, both for Stan and both for the fans. Another thought is maybe they should have like a limit to how many autographs he actually does, one book per fan, and how many fans he actually, like, they should have, like, maybe like I don't know, maybe they should cut off like 500 or maybe 250, maybe 100. Maybe Stan Lee should only do like 100 signings at a convention. I don't know. And if he wants to do any more, that should be like the Stan Lee plus line, like if he should give a thumbs up if he feels like doing more, but he's not obligated. I don't know. Just thinking outside the box, but a lot of fans have expressed a lot of dismay about what's been happening to this poor man. There is a really, really interesting letter from another comic book legend, Neal Adams. And this also comes from Bleeding Cool News, and it says, "An open letter from Neal Adams regarding Stan Lee, #Stand by Stan." Now I'm going to quote this directly, and the letter goes as follows, quote, "To whom it may concern, I know Stan Lee as well as one can, having not had daily contact with Stan. I have met his wife, who was charming, lovely, and an intelligent person. I have met his daughter only briefly, when she worked as a receptionist at Marvel Comics. She was not liked by anyone I spoke to, and I haven't heard anything good about her since then, except a few people's brief encounters, at which time she was described as charming and gregarious. Stan's loss of his wife, Joni, devastated him, as he had lost everything, because in effect he had. She was the dream wife, the model actress, the blonde, vivacious girl he had met in England and was lucky enough to marry. Max Anderson is a street punk. He's also a straight talker, and there's no BS with Max Anderson. He had his own agenda, as anyone with a brain would have, but he was dedicated and devoted like a dog to Stan Lee. Some people don't like street punks, but I would place my family's safety in the hands of a street punk rather than a lawyer or a convincing businessman. Stan had devoted a perfect man for his needs in Max Anderson. And now, if anyone wants to understand why I'm terrified for Stan Lee's life right now, just read the news. You could say, why do you give a damn? Stan will be dead soon. And I would tell you that my family kept my mother alive between the ages of 80 and 93, and I treasure that time. I've cried knowing what has happened to Stan. I do not know the answer to this one. I know that Stan needs Max just as a farmer needs his dog. The only advice I have for anyone involved is to please have the police continually monitor the situation for anything that might endanger Stan. For the sake of us all who love Stan, remember that depression affects life. Please protect him until Max can once again act on his behalf as his guard dog. This is street level stuff, folks. It really is. Unquote. So that was a quote from the legend Neal Adams, and it's just really interesting stuff here. Details that he's revealed. Apparently, Stan Lee's daughter, who is actively, from what I've read, what I've researched, she's actively trying to take control of the Stan Lee empire, and that's everything from what he does day to day to his finances and all that good stuff. And according to Neal Adams, when she worked as a receptionist at Marvel, a lot of people didn't like her. So that's interesting. Why didn't they like her back in the, I guess it must have been the 70s or 60s or whatever. Now, on that same article by Bleeding Cool, and again, I will have a link to this in the description box down below, Rich Johnson says, and I quote, "When I spoke to Stan Lee's current representative, Kia Morgan, on Friday, he brought up the concerned statements from comic book creators that had previously run on Bleeding Cool, including that of Neal Adams. Morgan told me he didn't know who Adams was, but he said I shouldn't take the word of someone who had just shaken Stan Lee's hand at a show over someone who has shared Thanksgiving with him." Rich adds another note saying Neal Adams was employed by Stan Lee for the first revival of the X-Men in the 60s and then on the Avengers, bringing us the Kree Skrull War. More recently, Stan Lee also wrote the introduction for Neal Adams' comic about artist and Holocaust survivor Dina Babbitt. Okay, unquote. So, wow, lots of interesting stuff going on here. Let's see. Any other things to note before we wrap this video up? Well, that's pretty much it so far. So, to summarize everything that's been going on with poor Stan Lee is, gosh, like where do you, he's had, his wife, the love of his life, died last year. He's had a lot of money stolen from him. He's lost real estate. And he's even had blood stolen from him. Now, I'm not for sure, this could be rumor, but I think the blood, like, they actually used it as ink for autographs. I don't know. It's crazy. This is crazy. No, it's not just crazy. It's extremely offensive. Taking advantage of the elderly. It's just terrible. And then just as equally as terrible, like a bunch of nurses who take care of him at his home accused him of sexual misconduct. A 95-year-old man. I'm not saying that such a thing is not possible from a 95-year-old man, but I think it's safe to say that the libido of a 95-year-old man is something you have to put into question, And so that's just a bunch of phooey. And then he had like a really bad bout of pneumonia in 2018, and now we've got him after like a lot of different canceled appearances and stuff like that. He goes to a convention and he's autographing like a machine, like an assembly line, all these autographs, and he can't really speak to his fans, and fans are told not to speak to him, and it's just so heartless. And here's another article. As of April 10th of 2018, Kevin Smith, the director and part-time comic book writer, he's made an offer for Stan Lee to come live with him. Oh, if only he would. I think Kevin Smith would take excellent care of Stan Lee. This is also on comicbook.com, and you can scroll down on this same article, but oh man. It's just a bad situation for Stan Lee all the way around, and it's very clear that he's being taken advantage of by someone or someone's, and there's apparently an internal struggle between his daughter and everybody else, And then it's a question is who is the good guys in this situation? And honestly, you never know. When it comes to the elderly, sometimes your own kids don't have your best interest at heart. Now, I'm not saying his daughter JC, I'm not sure what JC is short for, but his daughter JC, I'm not sure if she has his best interest at heart. And I know that there had been, like he had tried, him or people around him had tried to distance himself from his daughter. And now things have flipped since he got rid of some of his handlers for one reason or another. Now things are supposed to be peachy and all good with his daughter. So it's hard to say, you know, when you're 95, when you're a senior citizen, I hate that term, but when you're in your 90s or 80s, I think that at that age you just want to be left alone for the most part. Now, I'm not talking about social interactions, but you just don't want the hassle anymore. You know, all that little details of this and that, it doesn't really matter as much anymore. You just don't want to be hassled. And so I think it's really easy to take advantage of people who are senior citizens, you know. Well, I'm just rambling at this point, and I really wanted to make this video, and it's just crazy. I hope that people can do something to help the man. I think the best thing that we can do, because I think one way or another he's going to be taken advantage of at this point. It's already happened, and I think it's going to continue to happen. And I think, well, I don't want to say anymore because it's just depressing, but it's not going to end well. And but the one thing that we as fans can do, in my opinion, the one thing that we can do is to make sure that when we interact with Stan Lee, that it's a pleasant experience, and that that it's something that, you know, that can lift his spirits. So, you know, even though his handlers don't want people to say anything to him, I think, you know, even if he just even if it's just this one little phrase, I think that would mean the world to him. You know, just say, "Thank you, Stan." Imagine if, like, one person after another, you know, after you autograph their books, you say, "Thank you, Stan." And I don't know, so just anything like that to really brighten his day, and then, like, just be considerate, you know. I don't know. I mean, I think little things like that is about the only thing that we can do to really, as fans, to improve the quality of his life, when, you know, at least when he's at conventions and stuff. And I question how much longer he's going to be doing that, if there's actually, his handlers are telling him how to spell his name. So who knows? I don't know. But sorry for this depressing news, folks. It's just something that I wanted to talk about, and maybe you found it as interesting or as depressing as I did. At either way, thank you for checking out Mental Junk Food. If you like this video or appreciate the news that I presented in it, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe and follow to be kept up to date with more. I'd like to thank everybody that's taking the time to subscribe. So far, the channel's growing, you know, a little bit here and there. And as always, this is CB, and I will see you in the next video.